Yeah. Okay. Roll call, please. Present.
Angela Cameron. Truman G. Frank Heckman.
Here.
Helen Humphreys. Here. Timothy Kasadakis.
Here.
David Lamont. Tracy Remark.
Here.
Daniel Webster.
Here.
We have a quorum. We will have a quick prayer and pledge allegiance. Helen, if you would lead us in the prayer and invocation, please. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, thank you that we are able to live in a beautiful town and that we have a job to see to it that the people that come in the future will see this beautiful town. Also, thank you for the incredible sunsets. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
Oh, that one the other night I had to stop in the Seabreeze. Just gorgeous.
I have been notified that we are now going to be on TV starting this evening, so you're going to have to be a little bit more formal when it comes to our, you don't just speak up, you have to be addressed from now on. I've been very liberal about it, have had some complaints from some of the board members, and other board members like it that way. So if you will, please put your hand up and I will acknowledge you. And if you don't have to leave it up forever, I will see you and I will take you in turns. If you will do that for me, I will appreciate that. The minutes of the April 13th meeting, I don't know how many of you got them on the internet, but do you want to table it until next time, or do you want to go ahead and try to approve them this evening? It's up to the board what they want to do on it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
May I ask the board how many have privy to them or not?
I was going to suggest continuing it until next month, having just gotten them tonight.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
have mine, so.
Yeah.
I will.
May I make a motion that we hold this for 30 days for our next monthly?
That will be fine, and if you could please put one in our pocket for next month, it would be greatly appreciated. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
We will have them next
Good.
month then. Thank you, Mr. Heckman.
You're welcome.
Staff reports. Code enforcement, please. Michael, you tell me you have changed positions back again.
Well, no, I'm still with Daytona Proud,
Yeah,
but I'll be addressing this board.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We're always happy to see your smiling face.
No, thank you. Okay.
Yes, we are.
This is phase one of the Daytona Proud project, which is going to be from Main Street to International. This is how we started on the Grandview area, went across here, and then Operation 420 was the beach area. 427 is in this area right here, and 54 is going to be Hollywood. They were in, I guess, your area today, near Frank's house, I guess.
Say that again?
They were in your area, Frank?
Yes.
They were, okay.
Yes.
And then, of course, 511 will be in this area here, and then we should finish by between 518 and the next week. Last month, we wrote up 49 total. This month, we wrote up 286. Well, it catches up. It's a lot of paperwork, and as the paperwork comes in, and so you'll be seeing a lot more of the writing up. This is the properties that you can see on the maps that have already been written up, that are in the computer at this time. And so this is the next area that we'll be doing over the next 2 weeks. When they're writing it up, they're writing everything. I mean, if you have a cracked window, you're getting written up. I mean, very few didn't get written up.
Yeah, I got one today for our front porch is dirty.
Okay, so they,
You know,
they're
and we
really-
just painted, so we didn't get it all finished after, but that's okay.
Okay.
I'm,
All right.
I'm for it.
Okay. We've been getting a lot of phone calls. We've had actually people get off the ladder where they're painting their house and come over and shake Tom Cligg's hand and said, thank you for writing us all up. So this is the next area right here that we're going to be looking at. This is Phase 2, target for the starting of June 1st. That'll be 384 properties in this area. It'll be from Main Street north to Oak Ridge. So we'll take that block over the next 2 months after June. It's my project this morning, was Daytona Inn. We went over there and we met with the board members this morning and talked about all the stuff they need to do, because that's the most important corner, really. See how this is all, you know, it's just not being taken care of. So they're going to be painting the whole building, replacing all the awnings, fixing the windows up, putting proper curtains and things in there, fixing this wood, either replacing it with something else, removing, all this was removed today while we were there. Of course, the awnings.
Yes,
Excuse
Tracy?
me, if I, is Daytona Inn, isn't that, I thought we approved a, oh,
A what? Oh,
a site plan alteration, they were going to do all of this, when we do that, at least 6 months ago,
Yeah.
correct, Mr. Berger?
That's right. We did that last year and
Okay.
approved it, and it
But
hasn't
that's not
happened.
going to happen?
they're going to do it now.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I
Different
got it.
reasons.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, different reasons.
Thank you.
We're talking about the, over here, all this peeling, this is paint, I guess, they put on the glass, so they're going to have to redo that. There were some fire issues. There's going to be some issues with some new plants and things like that. So they're going to freshen that whole end up,
Good.
repaint it, make it look really nice. 335 addresses have been completed to date, and I think we did another 100 today. That still aren't in there. Thank you.
Any question of the board? Yes.
Actually, not a question. Since you mentioned Mr. Cligg, could I give you something to pass on to him?
Sure.
I left him a voicemail. There's about another 50 addresses there.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Michael?
Well, I just wanted to say a compliment. Certainly, a lot of the houses, let's take Harvey South on Grandview, have been painted and fixed up, and they absolutely look great, really.
Yeah, they really are. The people out there are pretty happy with the area and the way it's looking,
Yes.
and, you know,
So hopefully it'll be a domino effect, and one right after the other.
that's what
I
we're
know I have
seeing.
5 buildings that I'm under paint right now myself.
See? And that's exactly what we're talking about. Everyone's going to do it all at the same time, and
I want to get them before you get them.
thank you. Thanks.
Any other comments for Michael? Okay, we'll just keep it up. Captain Hoffman, please. No, Hoffman, I said.
Good evening.
No,
evening.
Hoffman.
You missed it. You went over your head.
Yes, please.
Well, let's talk about numbers in the district that I command here, the beach side. Overall, Part 1 crimes, which are the crimes of serious nature, are down right now 8%. Total burglaries in the district are down 9%. Larcenies are down 11%. Total robberies are down 6%. Citywide, we are down 22% in burglaries, 13% in larcenies, 12% in robberies, and we're down overall 14% in Part 1 crimes. We're averaging approximately 450 arrests per month in the district, and so far this year we've answered just over 29,000 calls for service. So, so far so good. The Main Street South Atlantic areas continue to be statistically the lowest as far as Part 1 crimes in the district. So We've had some success. Our crime suppression team is up and running in the first 20 days that they were up. That includes also their days off. In the first 20 days, they made nearly 50 arrests in their first 20 days. So out of that, we've also made, in the last month, 40 prostitution arrests, and we arrested 12 people during a buy-bust operation, which targeted street-level narcotic sales.
Good.
So we're up and running. So far, so good.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Yes, Tracy?
A while ago, the chief, I can't remember what meeting, but he was talking about also working with the state attorney's office. You saying prostitution arrests make me think of the merry-go-round type of arrests that police do, that you do all your hard work and someone's back out on the street almost before you sign off on the paperwork.
Yes.
Has there been any further change in those, I wouldn't call prostitution petty, but in those things that are considered almost petty arrests that the state attorney's office is taking more interest in, or judges are doing more, so we're not just every other day arresting someone for the same crime 50 times in a month?
I understand what you're saying. The only teeth that we have right now with prostitution is once you've been convicted twice, your third offense becomes a felony.
Oh, that's
So we have had a little bit of success with that, but the average sentence, even for a felony conviction for prostitution, is 6 months in the county jail. And we have several girls that, you know, are felony players in the game. But, you know, as you notice, as you drive around, I mean, we still, obviously, prostitution is not something that's gone away in the city. It's been around as long as I've been here, and even with 40 arrests in the last month, they're still here. So, yes, unfortunately, it is a revolving door, but, you know, we kind of have to hold on to that felony conviction tool that we have, because that's really all we have right now.
Believe me, I'm not suggesting at all to not arrest. I'd
Right.
much rather have someone 6 months out in county jail than on our streets.
Correct.
So,
Yes, Dan?
Are we doing anything more proactive relative to the enforcement of the noise ordinance and along Main Street and Seabreeze and such with respect to the bands that they're playing?
Well, the way that those ordinances are written is it's what's, you know, it's a community standard. So
Well, no, it's
I
not.
can drive around, and to me, it may not be loud. And if we don't get calls on it, we're not going to enforce it, because we assume that everybody in the neighborhood is okay with it. So until we get a complaint, the way that the ordinance is written, there's nothing we can address. And on top of that, if there's no one to sign a complaint, then it's nothing that can be brought in front of the code board.
I don't think so.
Okay?
All right, first, if you look at the ordinance, and first, it's a false assumption to assume that just because we don't make a phone call does not mean we're not annoyed and we're not disturbed by it, just that we're maybe too tired, too exhausted, don't want to make the block or two walk down Main Street to find out who the offender is, to call in, to be able to say, hey, this person's, you know, because otherwise, well, where is it? Well, it's on Main Street. Well, we got to know where. And then, you know, you've got to get through to somebody who, you know, call 911. Sometimes that doesn't work. Call the city, the police department number. Sometimes that doesn't work. So that's a false assumption. Secondly, there are two standards in the noise ordinance. One is, like you say, does it bother the neighborhood? Okay, that's where we make the phone call. Secondly, there's an absolute decibel limit on it. And I can assure you that if you're over 100 feet away and you can hear that fairly audibly, they ought to have a noise meter out there, and they ought to be pointing it, and if they're violating, you got to go stop them. Don't wait for us to call. Okay?
Okay.
You're never going to deal with the problem if you're going to wait and wait and wait. Because, you know, if it's a Wednesday night, that's usually a bad night. And by the time it's going and get up to the bedroom, all right, now it's 10 or 10:30. Do I really want to walk down there and go find out who it is? No. Okay? Or if it's a Sunday afternoon and the music's blaring, you know, do I really want to stop what I'm doing and make the phone call, and then they come and you got to do this? And I've made phone calls easily 20 or 30 times. Not once has they ever brought me a complaint form to fill out and sign.
Okay.
Okay? But You do not have to wait for a complaint to enforce it. There's an absolute limit. If you want to go through it, we'll sit down with the city attorney and go through it. We've done it in the past, and, you know, get the officers on track, because that's what needs to be done. When you do that, and it was done for a period of a year or two, it was a huge difference, okay, because they knew what they could and could not get away with. Now they think they can get away with anything, and so they're playing whatever they want, whenever they want, as loud as they want, and I can assure you it's disturbing the neighborhood. It's just, we're often don't have the energy, or it's too late, or whatever, to find out where it is, to make the call, and follow up on it. So,
Okay.
you know, I'm looking for some proactive enforcement of it, and, you know, I want to see those noise meters that they were supposed to have purchased, 3 or 4 of them, out in the cars, and if, you know, read the thing, it says at 100 feet from the property line, and if it's over 65 decibels, I think it is. This is 65 decibels, okay? So if you can hear this from 100 feet away, it's too loud.
I agree with you, Dan. We were at our rental at 30 South Oleander the other day, and Wise Guys, and this is, what, 4 buildings south of Main Street? You could hear it just like it was in your living room. And I'm surprised Mr. Paz doesn't complain about it, because he lives across the street there. And it was very loud, very, very loud. So, and I can agree with you 100%. Any other comments on the noise? Yes, Mr. Heckman.
Regarding the noise that you're referring to, Mr. Webster and Ms. Chairman, I called a meeting with the Main Street merchants a week after Bike Week, and I had all of the merchants there who had external music, and I told them that unless this is going to, unless you fail to adhere to what I'm saying, when it comes to Bike Week, or Biketoberfest, excuse me, when it comes to Biketoberfest, I'm going to be out every night. I do have a decibel meter, and I will also, although I'm not a police officer, but I will be approaching the management and the owners of these establishments. I have the names of their night managers, their cell phone, and so on, and I will assist in this problem by addressing it with the owners of the establishments that have the external music. So let's hope that something will be done, but that's part of what I had planned to do, and they know that I'm going to be out.
Well, you know, it's not just the Biketoberfest and the Bike Week, it's the rest of the other 50 weeks of the year that I'm worried about more.
Right.
And it's, you know, if they know you're going to be there and you're going to keep them within the limits, they'll stay within the limits, or they won't have the band or whatever it is. Because if we're going to have this E-zone, and we're going to have people living in this community, we got to do like every other redevelopment community does, is you don't have these bands playing so that they're, you know, an outdoor concert, because people are living in the neighborhood. So if we're going to have people living in the neighborhood, you know, we might as well start enforcing the laws we've got. And, you know, 52 weeks, or I'm looking for the 50 weeks. The 2 weeks, you know, I can live with it. You know, we're used to it within a certain limits. But you know, I want to see some proactive enforcement with respect to it. If they're driving down and they can hear it solidly 100 feet away, it's time for a decibel meter. And just look at the ordinance. It's, you know, right there. It's, I think it's 65 decibels up to 10 or 11 o'clock. Then it drops to 60. And 60 is, this is 60 decibels. So if you can hear it 100 feet away, it's too loud.
The ocean is 62. Ocean's 72. 72? Correct.
Mr. Heckman, when you're out, and I know you are several times during, other than Bike Week and Biketoberfest, if you hear that, would you give Captain a call and tell him what you're hearing?
Absolutely. I stay in close contact with Captain Hoffman, and I am out during the year, not just for, I thought that they were making reference to our recent bike week we had. But
I'm talking about this past Sunday and the past Wednesday, and
We'll play a close watch on it.
I would appreciate it.
Will do.
Well, you gave me a good idea there, Mr. Heckman, as far as the volunteers. Since you have the sound mirror, that's something you might be able to help us out with, because we are limited in those resources. So, thank you.
I can't hear his microphone, can you? Is your microphone on?
Yes.
You're going to have to talk into it, please. Please.
You gave me a good idea, Frank, since you have since you have the decibel meter, and most of my shift commanders do not at night. It's maybe something the volunteers can help us out with.
Yes.
By monitoring that on your rounds. That would be great for us, and we'll adjust it as it comes up.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Now, Mr. Paz, you had your hand up. Did you want to ask Captain Hoffman a question?
Well, could I make a comment regarding?
Yes, come up to the microphone, please, for a quick comment. 3 minutes, please.
Ken Paz, 33 South Oleander Avenue. Since my name was brought up, when I bought my house very close to Main Street, I accepted the fact that it is a very noisy place. And it's like the guy who buys a house under the airport. You can't complain about the noise when you know it's there for 70 years. And I just
Okay.
accept it. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, fine. Yes, Mr. Nicholson, and then we'll close it off.
I didn't buy my house next to Main Street. I bought it 4 blocks away, and I can hear the music louder than my television. I hear the same thing from Seabreeze on certain occasions when they have things. So there are things outside of our neighborhoods that's also coming in as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Captain Hoffman.
With that, I just
for-
wanted to let you know that back in July, we will begin quarterly reports at all our meetings. So you'll see me in July, October, January, and April. Will
Okay,
be when I'll
fine.
be coming back, and I'll make sure that Ms. Arbus knows to prepare the minutes that way.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you very
Also,
much.
If I may?
Yes, yes.
Very impressive statistics that we are hearing and seeing, and we thank you tremendously for you and your staff for making those possible.
I appreciate that, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Okay, go on, discussion, social services regulations. Jason, I think you're the leader on this, please.
Good evening. This is a discussion we've been having from the City Commission since 2009 regarding social services in redevelopment areas. As you recall, this started with the proposal to prohibit all social services, a broad definition in all redevelopment areas. At first reading, Ray Sanchez with the United Way came forward, raised some concerns, and the City Commission had requested Ray to put together a task force. And they've met for the last year or so, developing a proposed ordinance, and that ordinance is on, just so you know, that's what you see on page 12 in the packet, is what went to City Commission. They held a workshop on that proposed ordinance. In that ordinance, it proposed removing some of the current prohibited uses in redevelopment areas and making them conditional uses. And they could put up the presentation or the PowerPoint. Well, anyways, while we're waiting for that to come up, what I want to do is relate to you, and you have some of this summarized in the cover memo from myself dated May 6, regarding some of the outcome from that discussion from the City Commission. They requested their direction from the City Commission at the workshop that was held 2 weeks ago was to remove the task force proposal to have conditional uses. So their direction was very clear that if anything's prohibited currently, it would stay prohibited in redevelopment areas. There are some changes they are one that they're willing to go forward with is a clarification on food pantries. And that basically has to deal with it, that it's the feeding programs or the food pantries where they're handing out food directly to individuals that is creating the issue in the redevelopment areas. It's not the food warehousing such as what Second Harvest does, because you do not have the homeless individuals coming to those locations. So in the proposed code, you see that there's some clarification on that. They also talked about non-conforming uses. I'm
Can
sorry.
I ask one question just on that, if I could? What about if it's a food pantry where they're delivering food to shut-ins, because, for instance, they're not in a redevelopment, but I know Our Lady of Lourdes does that. So I'm sure we have others in the area where they are a central.
They're collecting food. A lot of the church,
And they're distributing it, but they're distributing it by driving to these people who are.
Yeah, that's,
depending on, and you'll see this when the ordinance comes back, there will be a definition of food pantries. And I think food pantries is defined as, let me see if it's in the,
Well, I was reading this on 3 of 4, page 3 of 4 in your backup.
if
It
you
looks
look
like a
at, yeah,
definition.
the memo from Rich, yeah, and what I was going to tell you is, you have my cover memo dated May 6th, and on May 2nd is the memo from Rich Walton to Paul McKittrick, and basically this memo summarizes the planning staff's understanding of what came out of the City Commission workshop. And if you go to page 3, the term food pantry is defined, and it does talk about a program that acquires food products through donations, canned food drives, food bank programs, or purchase, and distributes the food to individuals, and provides, does not provide prepared food for clients' consumption on or off the site.
But that's what I'm saying. So is the prepared food only about off-site? Or is it all food off-site? Because there are some that provide food off-site. They take it to shut-ins, to homeless, so I'm just saying that needs to be, I think, very clear, because I was confused reading it. And that can be it can be a problem with some of the churches out there.
And what I wanted, kind of jumping ahead in the presentation, where we are right now is based on the feedback the direction that came from the City Commission. We're coming back to redevelopment boards, have a discussion. We want to get your input. There's going to be 2 basically bites of the apple of this. Today you're having just a general discussion. We're going to go back, work with the planning staff and the legal staff, if there's any additional uses that we should be adding to basically what you see on page 2 of that memo. Then next month, we'll come back with a more detailed proposed ordinance for you to review, and I think that's where we need to get in, and it's good that you brought up that comment, and we can tweak the definitions are going to be very critical in this, too. So from my understanding, when it comes to the on-site, off-site, are you saying it's really the on-site that's the problem, not where they're off-site distributing?
Right.
Okay. So we might need to clarify that in the definition.
Yeah, I know that United Methodist Church, they have a program every other Wednesday, I believe it is, where people can go pick up food. And there's a lot of people around, and I believe they have used clothing, too, that they give out in that. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the on-site that it's a problem, but if they're taking it off-site, because it does is, it becomes Meals on Wheels, it becomes for their shut-ins, it's not always their parishioners, it's people who are in need, so just that, I would just be really clear on what we're saying off-site.
Right.
That's a good point,
Yeah.
Tracy.
So I think just to continue to summarizing what came from the City Commission, we had the clarification on food pantries. They don't want to see non-conforming uses to be able to expand. And then, again, as I was beginning to say, when it comes to additional prohibited social services, and this is where the direction was to go back to the redevelopment boards and begin this process, have the discussion we're having today at your May meeting on if there's any additional social services that we should be looking that are detrimental to the redevelopment efforts. And then we will compile that. We're having this discussion with all 3 redevelopment boards. What will come back to you in June is you'll see a specific proposal that's going to be distributed to all 3 redevelopment boards. So it's going to, each redevelopment area is unique, so you might see differences between what we're having in terms of discussions with each redevelopment board. And then there's also, we're looking at the City Commission would like to see look at identification of existing social services where they would register with the city, essentially a registration process.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Hetman.
If you'll look up there, please, And can you, I see you got bullet points, but there's a couple of us here, even with glasses on, cannot read what you're putting up there. Can you give us the bullet points?
Well, that's what I was just saying. What's up there is basically now for the TV audience going out, but you should, did we not print out?
Yeah. So those bullet points are what you just said?
Just what I just talked about.
No expanding, no, that they have to register, that they have to do, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't get the PowerPoint distributed to you, I think, before the meeting.
Okay.
We'll do that in the future.
Thank you. Do you need them read, Mr. Heckman?
Well, it's too late now.
Um,
Maybe we can find a way of making the print a little larger or a little more bold.
No, what needs to occur is it needs to, we didn't print this out for you to have it on, so you can read in front of you.
Thank you.
Well, Jason, I think what he's also saying is you got a white print on a soft blue background. It's tough to even see visually.
Very bad.
Okay.
It doesn't contrast enough.
Yeah,
Well, Reed needs to change his design then.
Change your template, Reed.
let me address Mr. Berger. Mr. Berger, I think you will understand what I'm saying. I do. The print, just like Mr. Webster said, it's a white on a blue, and you just can't make out what is printed up there. And why go to the expense of doing it when we can't read it?
We'll make sure you have information that you can read clearly.
Well, thank you. That's all I ask.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Okay. Essentially, and this one's probably not showing up that well, but basically the social services, but you have this one. This is in your packet.
Page 8.
That's in the
Page,
packet,
yeah, page 8. Social service agencies, page 8 of the packet.
Red
Okay.
8.
Thank you.
You'll see that 60% of the social services in Volusia County are within Daytona Beach. And then in terms of all the social service agencies within, if you look on page 9, you'll see that Main Street comprises about 1.5% of the social services within the city of Daytona Beach, and there's none in the South Atlantic area. Then basically, just to review with you, currently the prohibited social services, this is basically where we are currently in terms of, and this is going back to page 2 of Rich Walton's memo. And in terms of social services that are prohibited, there are blood banks, community residential homes, congregate meal facilities would be added, food pantry and feeding programs. Again, that's where we already had a discussion. We're just tweaking and to clarify the type of food pantry and type of social program that we're looking to prohibit in redevelopment areas. Homeless shelters. We are striking the language missions because this is an outdated term. And then you have plasma centers, recovery homes or treatment facilities, and then we're also adding temporary labor halls. I believe that's already prohibited in the downtown area, but now we're moving it up so it's prohibited in all redevelopment areas.
I have a question, please, Jason. The rehabilitation house there across from Sunsplash Park, would that mean that they would have to close down?
Well, no, it's an existing, so they're grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in, okay.
Yeah.
Now, if that were sold, could that be sold?
No, because the use always runs with the land. Sale is not a determinant of
The next
of
owner
use.
could resume that use. It's just when it goes out for 3 months or more in a redevelopment area that the use would
I
discontinue.
understand. Okay, fine, thank you.
Okay, and then one last thing, you're the last board we're talked to this month. Already, one of the issues that we're looking to add into what you have proposed here, what's come up from the downtown board, and I think the Midtown board also concurred with it last night, which is to add a term or a use called homeless services. You think about homeless shelters is where they're living. Homeless services would be any service that's being provided to the homeless, and which could be detrimental to the redevelopment area. I know in downtown we have an issue with the Goodwill Training Center. It's not, in a lot of their services they're providing to low-income individuals in terms of job training and job placement, but they do, if you go on their website, they talk about providing homeless services, working with the Salvation Army and the shelter that's in the Blue Road area. So that would be so the homeless services is a specific issue, and that's where we're getting the complaints for the nearby businesses. So when we talk about homeless services, it's the providing those that type of service to those homeless individuals, where it kind of draws them and they congregate in that area. So that's one we're looking to be adding, and that's kind of come out of the again, that's why the downtown board was looking at it. So basically, where we are now in terms of social services, what we're looking for from you today is if there's any other social service that we should be looking at in terms of adding to the list, any other issues related to social services that that we should be looking at prohibiting in the Main Street or the South Atlantic redevelopment area.
Well, this, of course, has been brought up before, but when there was an AAA meeting place on Main Street, suddenly there were a lot of disastrous things happening. The services need to be, but definitely not in redevelopment areas. And when they closed that, the problems just disappeared.
Exactly. Mr. Hartman, did you have any comments on this?
No.
Any suggestions? Yes, Tracy.
I do. Couple of things, and actually looking at this made me also look at the prohibited services, which I know we're not just looking at social, but seeing the other boards or the other redevelopment areas, I think the Main Street South A1A board should follow their direction and prohibit temporary check cashing under prohibited uses.
Yes.
Prohibit pawn shops in the Main Street South A1, you know, your heart of your tourist district. I agree with the homeless services. I think I understand why you're saying get rid of the term massage parlors, but I think if you don't have some clear direction that says if you have yes, it's licensed, I use a therapeutic massage all the time, but if you don't have some clear direction about signage, you're going to have massage parlors back. So if there's massage, it needs to be therapeutic, licensed, medicinal. You still need to deal with massage somehow, I think. The other thing, and I don't know where it would fall, 50% of all oxycodone prescriptions in the United States of America are written in the state of Florida.
Right.
It is the largest illegal drug that's legal, but it has a huge impact. And I don't see anything dealing with pain clinics, and they are moving north. It is a huge problem in South Florida. Huge problem. I don't know how you deal with it. I know that there's been conversation back and forth about, you know, it's medical. It's not medical. Okay? When Florida's oxycodone is called Kentucky heroin, it is not medical. And if we don't deal with it, it's going to be here. The other thing I see that seems to be missing that was in the backup, yes, we have, you know, the lion's share of social services in the county. 39% of them are in the CRAs, but what about right across the street? I don't see that any of these buffer zones carried through. And you had some great backup that went to the commission about within 1 mile, within 500 feet, within 200. So what happened with buffer zones? Because it does no good to make a ring around the redevelopment area. One side of Fairview Avenue is redevelopment, the other side is not.
Right.
You know what's going to happen.
I believe, well, I know in terms of Ridgewood, they're having conversations with the Ridgewood neighborhood in terms of an overlay. And I want to say there was some discussion, you know, I'm kind of focusing on just the redevelopment areas, but I want to say at the workshop there was some discussion about not only how, I mean, right now I think the most immediate is how we're dealing with the redevelopment areas, but I want to say there was some discussion about what you're talking about, the buffer areas throughout the city.
Okay, so that's being worked on under another guise?
Yeah, that would be planning
Because I do
staff.
think that's critical to what happens in your redevelopment area, that it can't just be lost by the wayside.
I have a question. There's several places on Main Street, or on A1A, it advertises for tattoos. And yet, that's my understanding, they don't do the tattoo there. They take you in a vehicle to someplace else where it's legal that they can give you the tattoo. But is there some way that we can have them have to take those signs down on A1A in this ordinance?
No, I don't believe so. We just addressed the tattoo situation. We knew about that business that busses them out. We can't regulate the content of signage. So how they're operating is in conformance with the law, and the amendment we passed allows tattoo parlors out in the M5 now. So
Okay.
Well, my thought on that is, if we're going to have the tattoo signs and such, why not allow the tattoo parlor and have it regulated appropriately? So because it's a very popular, not my bailiwick, but it seems very popular and tourists love them. So why not cater to the tourists? Tim, help me out here or something. Is it a good idea, bad idea? I don't know. But it seems like we have the signs, we have them being sold here. We just can't have the employees here. So.
Well, the one question I have as far as the signage, are we talking about interior signage or exterior signage? Because
Neon right on A1A.
And it's the truck, too.
because I mean I know because you guys can regulate what goes on our signs because you do it anytime I get a sign permit.
well, there's some First Amendment issues. I mean, we can't tell you exactly what to put on the sign, but in terms of going back to your question about tattoo parlors were banned throughout the city, and so their recent amendment considered where should we allow them, and they decided they didn't want to allow them on Beachside because they're trying to attract the families there, and with all the alcohol establishments, that was another reason they didn't want them out there. So they recently had this discussion about where to allow it, and they decided the M5. So if you wanted to bring that up again, you could.
When the tattoo parlor and body piercing issue came up, the reason was we really didn't have any regulations. The county hadn't adopted any of the OSHA health guidelines. So we tried to broker our business group over there because we had people over there that were doing tattoos and body piercing and sterilizing needles in Listerine. They didn't have autoclaves. They were doing them right on top of their register counter where people would walk in with their small children and see someone's privates getting pierced. And I'd have people.
Came up with M5.
I had people walk into the store. I'd have a father walk into the store, look around, and walk out, and then come back in with his family. And then finally, I started asking these people what was going on. That was the reason why that we ended up with this blanket prohibition of in the citywide. So to bring it back, I don't know. I mean, there's this there's so many X factors involved with the kids that come here, the drinking. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys that do tattoos might not be I know, like tropical tattoos, if you're drunk, they won't give you a tattoo. They'll send you out. But they have a very good reputation there. Some places, not so much. So, but I thought, if they're advertising a business somewhere else in another area, isn't that technically off-premises signage, which is illegal?
That would be off-site advertising, which isn't allowed.
Right.
But what is the sign that's...
Says tattoos.
No, it says, it's got language that says tattoo, but it says tattoo something or another, which indicates it's really not going to be done there, but you go in there and then it's a little misleading, but it doesn't just say tattoos are being done there.
The one that I see as we go down A1A is a sign about this high, and it just says tattoos is all.
Only, that's all.
That's all it says,
Oh.
tattoos.
I'm thinking of another one then.
Yeah.
But what they do, if I could add, body piercing, you see body piercing signs on the beach side as well, but it's off premises. So they take you, they can offer the service. The service is offered within the city limits of Daytona Beach. It's just not offered in that zoning. So they can advertise that they have that service available, and they will get you to where that service is offered. And, yeah, it was about a year and a half ago, I think, when they looked at, actually even, that's when the planning board and commission and everybody came up with the M5 for the tattoos. They didn't lift they didn't make it available everywhere. They said, this is the zoning in which this works.
So what's the definition then of an off-premises sign?
If it were referring to a specific business that wasn't located there, that would be off-site advertising. Like, you know, if your office has a sign to the Wendy's that's down the street, that's off-site. If it's just a general word that says tattoos, you're not referring to a business.
But if it's tattoos and they're not offered on the site, but they're
Well,
taken to
you can get a design. You can get a tattoo design.
Okay.
Well, you know, if I may.
Yes.
If you drive down 95, farther down south, you will see big billboard signs saying one-armed bandits, scratch-offs, and all kind of gambling devices. 2 miles and make a left into the Indian reservation. So what is the difference between that and the advertisement?
That's different. That's advertising. It's a billboard advertising.
Well,
it's just like years ago, Elias with Razzles, they wanted to put a sign for Razzles on the corner of Seabreeze and A1A, but he wasn't allowed to because it's a separate parcel. Even though the same owner owns both parcels, they couldn't put a sign there. Just like Daytona Lagoon at one time wanted to put a sign in front of the Ocean Center for Daytona Lagoon, but that's an it's off-site sign, and that's illegal in the zoning. But advertising, billboards.
It's like television commercials,
Yeah.
Listerine.
That would be then different than that neon sign on A1A saying tattoos.
Yeah.
Right. And additionally, that's our local ordinance. They may not, wherever this sign is that you're talking about, may be in a different jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Helen, did you have something?
Just a question, but then what is to keep someone from putting a big sign that says massage parlor, but they take you someplace else?
Good point.
Well, that's what staff's going to work on.
So many questions, so little time.
They're going to put their heads together and...
I'll let you get with Mr. Berger and legal
as we go
counsel
through
and come back with us.
keep in mind on some of these issues, as we go through the clearing on rewrite, and related to the E-zone, right now as staff, we're in the middle of dealing with Module 2, which is really just the land use, the permitted and conditional uses, and the basic building form standards. When we get to Module 3, we'll be dealing with architectural standards, and you recall when we get into the redevelopment, and I think what would fall within that area is that gets into the sign code and to some of our redevelopment design standards, and that's where we do have even currently certain standards regarding window displays and I think that's going to be an opportunity to look at those standards and where they might need to be improved. Because, our current redevelopment design standards were adopted in 2002, so they're getting to about 10 years old. And, I'm sure there's other communities that have gone, have modernized their standards, and there might be some things we can look at what other communities have done since 2002.
Okay, Chris, you had your hand up. You want? What? What?
Sorry, no, I'm just...
Okay. Chris, I'll give you 3 minutes.
I'll be real quick. I wanted to specifically address the social service agencies. And I don't know.
Your name and address, please, Chris.
Chris Dawn, 132 Pierce Avenue, Daytona Beach. Did your packet include tax-exempt properties in the city on this subject?
I think you did.
I don't think so.
Anyway, in the commission workshop packet, which I'm sure we can get you a copy of on page 72, it talks about tax-exempt properties in our city. In addition to the number of social service agencies, the one I have is it's numbered page 72.
Yeah, okay.
It's in here.
Okay, so if you look on what was numbered page 72, it shows in Daytona Beach, roughly total parcels of a total value of $260,401,000 of tax-exempt property in the city. And mind you, I'm aware that Riverfront Park would be included that, or colleges and university. But given that social service agencies, for example, they have requests for police, fire, and emergency services, which impact our taxes in our city. All right? We're looking at a 7.07 rollback rate for the city of Daytona Beach next fiscal year. You're responsible for a redevelopment area, which is financed through TIF, tax increment financing for capital improvement projects. What I wanted you to look at is the drastic differences between the other cities and what Daytona has. Then on top of it, we have these agencies that have high impact for services in our city that then the difference has to be made up in our millage rate. And what I'm proposing is that for the social service agencies that are going to be grandfathered in, that the city is discussing signing an agreement with those agencies that will be a prohibited use agreement with the agencies. But in addition to that, I would like the boards to propose to the commission that a pilot agreement, which stands for payment in lieu of taxes, be part of that agreement.
27 seconds.
Okay, the payment in lieu of taxes basically is about where you could charge these agencies additional bills, even though they're tax-exempt properties, for the impact they're having that we're not going to pay for, which then makes us competitive. Because if you realize if we hit the 7.07 rate, we're going to be one of the highest in the state, and that's not...
Thank you. John Nicholson, your name and address, please.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview
3
Avenue.
minutes.
Two things I would ask you to think about: body wash and scrub. I think it was Chantilly lace off of Seabreeze, and there was one off of Halifax and International. I would ask you to consider the possibility of adding those because they are not necessarily body wash shops.
That's a good point. I remember, it was a body wash. It was off Seabreeze on Oleander. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
What about group homes?
Group home?
There was one up by your area. One time they had a big long lawsuit.
Oh, there still is.
Okay.
There is the regulated group home, and then there is the hiding behind the American with Disabilities Act group home. That's not really a group home, and that's what we have.
Oh, okay. But you know what I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah, I sure do.
We need to put something like that in there, too.
Well, I
That's
think...
actually already in.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
community residential homes, which are regulated by the state, is already there listed. But I think there is another classification that's protected under state law that we cannot deal with, and I don't know if Carrie wants to comment on that.
Are you talking about the community residential homes? They are regulated by state statute. There are different kinds of housing that we are looking at. What Tracy's referring to is, for example, if people who are recovering alcoholics or somebody who's recovering from a disability, we can't tell them you can't locate in a single-family residential district. We can provide reasonable accommodations to, kind of make it somewhat workable, but we do the best we can, and that is a problem, though.
Yeah. Okay, Cheryl. Any other questions of Jason? Yes. Well, then we will.
So I think, just to make sure we have a clear understanding of what we're doing, some of those additional uses that you, the homeless service that's coming from downtown, I guess you concur with the downtown board's comment on that one, and then, and I believe some of the other ones, which are more about certain commercial uses. I think the way we're going to handle this, you'll see as it comes back in June, you'll see one ordinance that's dealing with social services. They want to keep the social service issue kind of separate, and then the same kind of issues that you're bringing up have been brought up at the other two boards, and so you'll probably see a separate action dealing with the redevelopment areas in terms of those making the changes to list on prohibited uses.
I just want
And don't be surprised when it comes back. Some things that you might see that are specifically listed in one of the areas, if all the boards said they want to prohibit it, it might move up to that category A where it's just prohibited in all redevelopment areas.
Jason,
I just wanted to
just a thought relative to the body wash and all that such, and I'm just trying to figure out how you can prohibit, going in and saying massage parlor or body wash or things like that. I think is very difficult because there's always a way back around them. I mean, is it possible to make them any personal services business other than certain specifically identified ones, which we could look and then say those would be a conditional use or something like that. I don't know, because otherwise there's always ways around and more creative. And
when it comes to some of these more complicated ones, we might have to wait. Right now we're going through this issue, which is immediate, and just dealing with this ordinance as proposed to our current change to our current LDC. You got the Clarion rewrite going through, and I think we might be able to deal with those more complicated issues at that time. In terms of what you're talking, and we haven't. And plus, when that all comes, when the Clarion rewrite comes back to you, you'll be seeing Module 2, and that's going to be an opportunity to really look at all the redevelopment district or all the zoning districts in the Main Street and South Atlantic area, and see what uses are proposed and do they still make sense. To kind of look at the big picture instead of a specific issue that we're doing here. Kind of look at it from the global, and that's where we're going to deal with. Last meeting we talked about the issues with the RDB5. I've already been doing the research and working with the Clarion, so all those issues we'll bring back to you as we review the Module 2.
Ellen.
I mean, it's a lot of hard work, what we're all involved in, but if you look in the past, we've made tremendous strides in what we've done. And the other is, I know we have to stick with our 3 minutes, but I did think that Chris brought up some interesting thoughts. That pilot sounded interesting.
Anything else?
Well, I would just also add, I mean, if you look in budgeting, I don't think it's changed since I was on the commission, things that the city owns, like the Wilder Golf Course, they do a payment in lieu of taxes as well. It's a budget, it goes through the budget. It's something that's part of the golf course budget. The enterprise zones, they have to do a payment in lieu of. They're not taxed on their whole use, but there is still a tax that they have to then pay into the general fund. So, and also thinking of that 7.07, yes, it's payment in lieu of taxes, but it's still trying to approximate what our tax rate is. And having about the highest tax rate in the state is not something that is going to help business at all. It's not going to bring it here. So,
okay. Shall we move on, please? Our redevelopment project update.
Just to let you know that on June 1st, we'll have our quarterly CRA meeting. At that meeting, at this time, it looks like the agenda will allow us the opportunity to address the marketing plan that was submitted in November. We talked about it briefly a couple months ago because there was a request from the band shell for some funding, and we went back and revisited the marketing plan. That really is a plan to create a plan. And so we're going to have some recommendations on what to do next to really develop a marketing plan. So that will be one agenda item. You're also going to have an opportunity to get the ISB Streetscape project back on the agenda. We've concluded our discussions with the with everyone involved. And so that one is going to get back on so we can hire somebody, get them under contract, and begin the process of public input, design, and hopefully by the end of the next 9 months to 10 months, we'll be actually in a point where we can start to break ground and really change what you see when you drive over the bridge, cross the river, and drive towards the Ocean ISB. So that's positive. We also expect that the E-Zone Master Plan will be coming out in a presentation form by AECOM. Yeah, we're looking at tentatively right now June 2nd. I can't promise that that's happening. There's a little bit of fluctuation right now whether or not, because this is complicated. We have to have the county council and the city commission and everyone meeting at the same time. So I understand that tentatively we're looking at potentially Thursday, the day following that CRA meeting. We could meet. So stand by and see if that really happens. Otherwise, we'll be later into June. The part of the E-Zone master plan involves a recommendation to put the Noble Alley and Wild Olive and those areas and improve those streets that travel from the Ocean Center to Main Street. And we have most of the engineering done on that. We know what we would need to do to make that project happen. There's still some discussion with Peabody Auditorium, the advisory board, and some concerns about some locations of trees and those details. But we'll work through that, and we expect to come out and start implementing parts of that E-Zone master plan. Again, this is not about it as a plan that will sit on a shelf. This is about putting it into motion, and developers are looking at this with keen interest. So there are opportunities to start having those discussions so that by the time that we get the actual land code regulations and the form-based guidelines in place, and we're going to work with Clarion to do that, then we can move forward with the actual development process. And this board will be a primary player in that in terms of the process of site plan review and approval.
Virginia? Yes. I have great hope that this group will have much more input and sensible input than the state of Florida did in what they did on Atlantic Avenue and the placement of trees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is our chance to do it right, and I just really have a good feeling that we're going to come together and use wisdom in changing this. And really, we've already made progress on International Speedway. There's a number of things that aren't there anymore, and I think the potential's there, to the point where there may be pots on Main Street. Kidding. Flowers, that is.
Flowers.
Optimistic.
Yes, yes.
Real flowers.
Yeah.
I want to also mention that E-Zone master plan, I know it's online and you can look at it. I know no one can afford to just print that off. As soon as my copier, my second copier is back online, we'll try to get you copies of that, because that's going to be important for you to be involved in that review process. Okay.
May I ask a question of you about what's happening on the Main Street Pier project? Jim, would it be appropriate to do that now, or?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not directly involved in that, so I read the paper like everyone else does.
Looked good.
But I think it looks like Joe's Crab Shack is the single player, and it's a matter of negotiation with them, and I understand that's moving along very quickly. So we'll see if there's going to be a deal, and that could happen. Who knows? Maybe as early as the June 1st meeting. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Any comments from the public? John, 3 minutes. Name and address.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. With regard to the Noble Alley, I went to the Peabody Advisory Board meeting last month and surprised them, because apparently they were not aware that somebody was out to screw the Peabody until I mentioned it. They want to know who it is. They think it's somebody on this board, and I'm telling them, no, you guys are not active in it at all. What's happening is they have a storage facility, a garage, that empties off Noble. They would have to do away with it. That's where they store all the stuff for the band shell. So they would not have, the band, the cheerleaders, the big platform and all, is all stored in there. They have 2 entrances to the Peabody there. There's several reasons why they want that alley. They use it for their buses. They get 52 buses. They have 2 children's programs a year. The public school uses that alley. They have to find places for 52 buses. They use that alley for that. They make money off of the valet parking. The valet parking parks all the cars down there. They're assured, Paul Wetzel said, that there's not a problem. You can park your cars down there. Well, the problem with that is if you have 19 feet and you put a tree down the middle and you do the numbers, you can't get buses and things down an 8-foot pathway. Once you put trees and they grow out, it's even less. So it is going to be a major concern to the Peabody. There will be hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses to them, which affects their bottom line. And in addition to that, it's where their big semis come in for their productions as well. So it is a very, very used alley, and if you put trees down the middle of it, I don't know if you've seen a semi, they don't go well in an 8-foot spot. Thank you.
Any other one from the audience that want to make a comment? Okay, board? Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Berger.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify one thing, though, just to conclude that staff is going back, will be addressing that alley to make sure it's a great pedestrian alley. It has trees, but it does not interfere with the other alternative uses of traffic that needs to go down there, including emergency vehicles, whatever. But we'll address that, and so, again, we've had an ideal design put together, and now we need to modify that. But we'll get there and have something that we can build.
Reed, and if I just may, I just hope they do it in a little better manner than they do with those silly islands they put in between Peabody and the Ocean Center that a bus can't get around and such. So, I mean...
Same designer, and we'll work that out. Okay.
Because those don't work, so...
Yeah. We need to, those need to be bigger circles, and we'll be working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Board, any comments? Tracy, I thought you had your hand up.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Regarding our joint workshop meeting with the Historic Board, just one thing that was, well, a couple things. One thing that was mentioned, Mr. Romanek stated that it wouldn't affect any new building on Main Street. It's just those applying for demolition. Actually, the ordinance, historic ordinance, a certificate of appropriateness is required when you erect an addition to an existing building, structure, etc., or you erect a new building within a district listed on the local historic register. So all of the vacant lots on Main Street would be required for anything that goes there to have to get a certificate of appropriateness, which is quite involved. It's not just 5 minutes or even 15 minutes and 5 weeks in front of the board, because they can't show up with their drawings on a little paper napkin. It's got to be real. It has to show what they're going to do. So it is another layer. I agreed with what Dan said. I think based on what was said, I don't see what I heard this board saying and what I heard that board saying. I don't see there really being an agreement on whether or not Main Street's included. So I would suggest the Historic Board has to do what they feel they need to do. Also, though, if they really want to make another difference on Main Street, us becoming a certified local government, which there's provision for that in the historic ordinance, but I don't see a push from the Historic Board to keep doing that. that would open up more grant properties or grant programs that would also help the smaller businesses. So I don't know how the board feels. I don't think we need to do something as strong as a resolution, but I, for one, just wanted to say in terms of having another meeting with them, I don't think that it would accomplish bringing us together any closer than it was. So, you know, I would suggest that the historic board just do what they feel that they need to do based on what they got from this board at the time.
Okay. Anyone else want to make a comment on that, on the board here? Okay. Helen, did you have any comments you want to make about anything else?
Well, I know back when Mr. Piambolo across the street was going to erect a new building, he had to bring forth plans, and it was a beautiful building that he was going to put up there, and then, of course, the economy went kaput. But he had to bring drawings before, and it was very attractive. Too bad the building didn't go up. But it matched very nicely with what we would want.
Do you have anything, Mr. Hartman? I have nothing. Anyone from the audience? This is unusual. It's now agenda, let's see, now it's, I have 7:48. We are adjourned.